Thank you for inviting me to participate in the fourth edition Global Conference on Gender and Sexuality Studies. I'm Tiajuana Tillman, a doctoral candidate at Morgan State University. My research centers on trans identity politics concerning Black and multicultural bodies. I'm passionate about expanding the canon to include the voices of oppressed and stigmatized transgender minorities. Although my project is a literary one, I draw from sociological and psychological subdisciplines, as well as statistics concerning the death toll of trans individuals. Within my project, I argue the importance of transgender memoirs, how when viewed through an existential lens, trans individuals have a right to live as they see fit, and how their literature within the realm of academia can play a major part in defining and shaping how trans individuals should be viewed in America. The title of my presentation today is Earth-Quaking the Canon, Establishing the Trans Hero. I'll be presenting an excerpt from chapter 2 of my dissertation, which is titled Establishing the Trans Hero, a Critique of Existentialism, Authenticity, and Heroism. The trans existential hero is brave, grounded, and undefeated, resilient, and incentivizing. In the presented trans memoirs, the trans existential hero unquestionably vanquishes their internal and external oppositions. The existential heroism of being brave enough to choose and to create the life you live by the choices you make is what offers a foundation to the heroism displayed by the protagonist in the presented memoirs. Existential heroism is not only the action of bravery and determination to succeed at what you make your mission as life plays out. It is also the mental capacity, internal morality, and concreteness one possesses definitively enough to say, to claim, and to recognize that I know who I am. I know how my life should be and what steps to take to create it. I'm absolute about my decisions. This brings us to the trans hero. Heroic behaviors exhibited by transgender individuals. On the presented screen, displayed are the 7 transgender memoirs and protagonists to be examined in my project. Today, 2 of those trans protagonists, Janet Mock, an African-American and Hawaiian trans woman, and Charlie Burton, an African-American trans man, are the focal points. In Redefining Realness 2014, Mock exhibits heroism through her recognition of gender norms, her willingness to establish her identity as a female, and the strength she gains through significant African-American writers. Beginning with her recognition of gender norms and the power they supply, Mock states, then Auntie Wee Wee, with her large eyes and tall, slender frame and sweet smile, winked at me and said, "Come help me out, baby." Making the chocolate cake gave me entry to graduate from eavesdropping to being one of the girls. This is womanhood, I thought, watching the women in Dad's life cook and cackle in the kitchen. Mock is filled with an excitement comparable to that of an initiation into womanhood. Possibly, this is something like the feeling of a 13-year-old boy at his bar mitzvah believing that he is finally becoming a man. This passage is significant not only because it defines womanhood for Mock or the beauty standards she admires, tall, slender frame, and sweet smile, but it presents an image of acceptable behaviors, attributes, and possession as the authentic female. This archetype, a household gathering where women assemble to mingle, celebrate, cook, or create delicious meals, provides a comfort in the atmosphere. a welcoming of sorts, and a place of non-judgment per se. We are family. We welcome all. We feed the souls, physically and metaphorically. Moreover, for Mach, this is life. This is real. This is what she desires to be, or the woman of such authority and respect. When Mach states, making the chocolate cake gave me entry to graduate from eavesdropping to being one of the girls, she signifies her hierarchical position in the family and her identity, but also the implication and importance of language. For example, consider the chocolate cake. The chocolate cake Mach's entry key is sweet, savory, an all-time favorite for many. It is also Black, beautiful, and freedom from constraint. When Mach states this is womanhood, I thought, watching the women in Dad's life cook and cackle in the kitchen, she develops the theme of womanness and hood by incorporating the masculine and dominating figure, women in Dad's life. Her father, or the male figure by whom she ultimately, one day, wants to be accepted and treated as a full woman, is implied in this passage. Mach being allowed in the kitchen to cook essentially alters the gaze of her other, her audience, and signifies her position in society. This is a major stepping stone for Mach as it elevates her transition into womanhood and shifts her gender identity. It is a heroic encounter she didn't hesitate to act upon. Mach continuously gains her heroism through acts of femininity within social settings. For example, she creates a female persona named Keisha, and this imaginary figure becomes the most authentic part of her. She states, I let myself inhabit the life of a teenage girl I yearned to be, and Keisha was my heroine. Keisha was more real to me than I was to myself. There was no one else when I was in the moment as Keisha. She was fully me, the me I knew myself to be in those quiet instances when all I had to do was merely be. Though Mach is blatantly aware of the consequences of her female persona, stating, I was certain the falsity of Keisha, no matter how real she felt to me, would result in a whooping or something worse. The boundaries of gender, I was taught, were unmovable, like the glistening white rocks that surrounded Grandma's crawfish ponds. Keisha proved, though, that self-determination, proclaiming who you were to others, wielded the power to uplift those rocks toward a more honest place. Mach's heroism is her overcoming internal opposition. She's mentally aware that because of societal norms and binary gender roles, she is judged, her actions are frowned upon, and that she may even be harmed, simply due to her entering the kitchen with Dad's women or adapting the persona of Keisha. Charlie Burton, in his 2022 memoir, The Boy Beneath My Skin, a Black trans man living in the South, depicts heroism by way of magical or spiritual realism. In his text, we learn that Burton creates and or surrounds himself with spiritual figures of several personalities who assist him through traumas in everyday life experiences. For example, being born a biological female, but seeing himself as a boy, the boy beneath his skin. Burton often describes his spiritual or imaginary friends, which I call defenders, and how they cared for him. He states, today, I realized how much these people love me to take on what I should be taking. It is not their fault, but mine, and they love me that much to endure this. I watch Superman as he floats in the air. The little boy tells me that Superman's job is to make sure we do not die. Superman is like an angel. The little boy says that he is here only to protect us and give us life. The little girl takes my pain, and when it is over, she pulls up the panties and we walk back up the hill. The church boy is there to listen to the preacher and protect you from being hurt. The first little boy explains that they are like my Band-Aids. They cover up the pain. They will tag along in my life for many years to come, many times saving me when I cannot save myself. These defenders were Burton's lifelines per se, providing strength, encouragement, and reasoning during personal challenges. They helped Burton become heroic and to remain heroic, even when all else seemed to fail. During another significant moment, Burton describes how his defenders stepped in to bring an end to horrific sexual abuse. He states, "I step away and let the little boy step in. He is fast and he has a lot of courage. As the covers are pulled back, the little boy kicks him in quotes where it hurts. And he, the 6 others, and I run. The little boy holds me and says, it will be okay, that we are strong, that the little girl can take it. So can all of us." I can hear everyone screaming very loudly, and then the muffling of screams. Later that evening, the little boy tells an adult that he is not a nice man. The next day, and for many days after that, we never see him again. Burton was often molested, raped, and abused, and he was psychologically manipulated at a very young age to believe that this, the cruel actions of others, was normal, acceptable, and even his fault. By Burton and his defenders refusing to settle, to put up with constant abuse or succumbing to his environment, his heroism toward his external oppositions pushed him to prevail, establishing his authenticity. To conclude, through the proclaimed actions of each protagonist, they clearly exhibit their non-conforming behaviors, unacceptance of the heteronormative way of life, and refusal to be bullied, targeted, and victimized. Each protagonist understands they were born a specific gender, regardless of their biological sex, and they live lives by way of personal existential choices that allow them to create, maneuver, and justify their presence in a heteronormative society. In closing, and to reiterate, this is an excerpt from chapter 2 of my dissertation, which is titled Trans Heroes, an Existential Critique of Identity Politics in Transgender Memoirs. This project centers on establishing the trans individual or protagonist as the existential hero through their heroic acts exhibited in their personal memoirs. By bringing these powerful acts of bravery to the forefront, it is my hope to establish a space within the canon for the othered or disregarded individual. The unheard voices of trans persons, especially those of color, who are not known or well known within the realm of academia, must be considered in order for a more humane and equal society to be formed. A critical factor which contributes to the necessity of the inclusion of trans literature are the disproportionate death rates of trans individuals. By having access to and appreciating the experiences of trans individuals through their discourse, a more compassionate and accepting and understanding society will prevail. Thank you.